83% of the people that took our survey said Islam was connected to ISIS.
Approximately 50% of people gave Muslims a negative stereotype.
Religion has been portrayed in a very highly negative light. All the screens, TV screens, print media, social media, online communication, they are filled with the messages that Islam is a religion of violence. Islam is not a religion of peace. Muslims are terrorists. The political candidates are proposing the ideas how we can keep the Muslims out. So this is a very unfortunate reality, and yes, it does impact us very negatively. It does affect. It impacts the safety and security of the women. A lot of women, they have been harassed, not just harassed but attacked. In some incidents, there were cases where the babies in strollers, they were pushed into oncoming traffic. So unfortunately, these are the effect of what we call Islamophobia. Yes, it does impact Indian Muslim community negatively, but it also hurts the community around us because these kind of attempts, these kind of attempts amount to tearing apart the very fabric of our own society. It is dividing our own country. Islam is very clear on its teaching that all mankind are created by God. They have their rights, and it is very clear in terms of not harming anyone. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once again, he has mentioned that he is not a believer, and he did not stop there. He repeated again, he is not a believer, and he said it the third time, he is not a believer from whose hands and tongues his neighbors, the people, do not feel safe. There is a distinction between just feeling safe and actually not being safe. So remember what Prophet Muhammad said, that he is not a believer even if the people just not feel safe from his hand and his tongue. So harming or committing any crime against humanity is far worse sin. So yes, we do not consider the individual who is inflicting harms on others to be following the teaching of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or the teachings of Islam. So following the commandments of God, submitting one's will to the will of God, aligning one's will to the will of God is the path to heaven. Love your neighbor, help the humanity, feed the hungry. Those are some of the actions we do in addition to our belief, and those are the paths to heaven.
Yeah, I believe that being generous is important just because when you are able to give something to somebody else, you're able to, from a Christian standpoint, give back what I've received. And so that is a major part of my faith. Anytime that I see somebody that's a Christian who does the wrong thing, it's saddening. It's disappointing to see, and even there can be times where it can be angering because of the misrepresentation of the rest of the faith. And in terms of what I consider them to be following, or are they a Christian if they were to do something that contradicts their faith? I think that it's a difficult line as to what that means, but if somebody's character totally contradicts the faith that they proclaim, then there's definitely an issue. So if somebody were to claim to be a Christian, but to constantly be doing something that isn't Christ-like, then yeah, that I would question if they really are a Christian. I don't think ISIS is really much to do with Islam. It's really using faith to manipulate people to fight. So it's really all about power, and it's really sad. Um, so I actually grew up with a lot of Muslim people that were really devout, really great people, and so I have had a lot of experience with Muslim people, and they have a great idea about life and are really forgiving. They're loving people, and they follow rules. So I think they're great people. I just think that they um, have a different view of the world than I do as a Christian.
What ways do you think we could stop the misconceptions of Muslims?
It's a very wonderful question, and I would like to share one of the stories. As a young man, several decades ago, I was coming back from my college, riding on a train, and I saw a couple of strangers sitting in front of me, and they were probably Hindus. I looked at them, and they looked at me several times, and they were like looking at me. I was looking at them, and I started developing some negative thoughts about them. I was asked because there was a lot of animosity between Hindus and Muslims back then. So I was telling myself perhaps these guys are thinking of harming me in some ways, and they were looking at me. After a few minutes, I just smiled, and they smiled. And then I asked a question, where are you coming from? They said that we are coming from here. And then the conversation started. A few minutes later, we were joking, sharing the thoughts and ideas on all the smiles. The misunderstanding, the prejudice I had in my mind, and perhaps in their mind too, they were all gone. So the best way to dispel the misunderstanding is to have the dialogue, to have human beings come together, share a meal, share the ideas and thoughts, and share smiles. So those are some of the things which we can use to dispel the misunderstanding. In certain aspect, we may disagree, but as the civilized nation, if we agree to disagree, that is the way to move forward.